Think we're working?
All right, Lee, sorry for the interruption. Have at her.
Thank you very much. Good to be back with you. And this time there's no snowstorm, so that's very much appreciated. Let's talk a little bit about the job in front of us and before we get into details. Normally at this point in time, we would be talking about the timeline. The way we had originally set it up was tonight when you would talk about finalists, and then the people that you would choose to interview we had reserved Thursday and Friday. We didn't know. We set them both aside all day. We just wanted to wait and see. So if you choose finalists, then we would schedule and do that the first round. The second round was scheduled for next Tuesday in the afternoon. And so after the first round, we would schedule the Tuesday, the second round. And so those schedules would become public as you put those together. Per our last meeting, Lynn and I got together and all the first round questions are done and ready to go. And we've got the second round on hold that we can do yet before the second round comes about. So that worked out very well. The normal process that would happen would be we would go through the applicants. You've had a chance now for, I think, 8 or 9 days to be able to read through each of the applicants and see all of the papers, the same papers that we saw. And the timing of we started late. The timing of our search was such that, we really didn't begin until the second week of April. Normally, you're probably doing a hire by that time or thereabouts, and we would wrap up in the third week or thereabouts of May, late. But it's a good go. We wanted to see what would happen. We received a total of 4 applications, which is quite small. Of the 4 applications, 2 candidates withdrew. One withdrew to take another job. Another one withdrew because they thought it was late in the year and didn't want to leave their current position and affect the district that they were currently working in. And that left us with 2 candidates. So I think before we get deep into the candidates themselves and how we go about vetting and all of the background work that we do that helps enrich what you've read already in their papers, I think, Mr. Chair, it might be good to have a discussion about, what's next. To me, I see a couple of options that you could think about. One is to follow the process the way you laid it out. There are 2 applicants, and should you choose to interview them, we could schedule the first round interview and talk about how that might work. Typically, if you went that route, with that small of a pool, I would recommend that we would go to an extended interview. So instead of scheduling an hour, probably schedule an hour and a half and really set up an in-depth process so that at the end of that, you probably would be able to choose a candidate. We could go first round and second round, interview them twice, and districts have done that. That works fairly well as well. So that would be the first option, is to follow the process. The second option is to suspend the search and to reopen it again January probably of next year. MSBA does that. There's no extra charge at all to redo it. We've done that before. This year I've actually done 3 of them so far this year, which is very unusual. A year ago I did 1. And the pools this year have been quite small for some reason. We're not sure why. And if you did suspension of search, then you would look for an interim superintendent that would cover this year. There is a separate unique contract that you would use for an interim. I've done 3 of them myself over the years. Typically, I would have a 30-day in or out on either side for any reason. So that should you decide partway through the year that, you know, when you open it up and you've got some candidates you're ready to hire, you can bring them in April, you can do it. Or you could just say, you know, I don't like this interim. Thank you for your service, but 30 days from now, you're done. Likewise, the interim could go, you know, I'm out of here in 30 days. Thank you for letting me work for you for a while. So the risk goes both ways. Typically, they run the whole year, though. That's normal. Next year, if you were to suspend and restart, we probably would talk dates for meetings in December and then kick off the first part of January. In the meantime, then, I mean, this is a pretty small fraternity. Everybody knows what everybody else is doing. And they would know that you would have an opening, a possible opening this coming year. So those are the two options that I see. You know, I don't have a recommendation one way or the other. I would just answer any questions you might have about this or help you with any discussion you might have.
So you had started, Lee, with the three options, or was that the second aspect of option two?
Hire an interim was the third.
Okay.
Sorry, I folded that into the suspend the search.
Okay, so I think the task before us, board members, is we need to decide how we're going to move forward off of those two. So I'm going to open up for comments, and that decision will I guess bear all the rest of this meeting takes place. So
I do have one question.
sure.
So in the say we went the interim route, like you had said, and you said that there's a risk that, you know, that 30 days, is that risk on you guys?
Typically, the risk would go both ways.
Okay.
You know, there's a district that I was working in earlier that suspended. They were in a very similar situation that you are. They met with two possible interim candidates. They made an offer to one, and they're working out contract details. I think they're talking 60 or 90 days, but on either side. But every intention is to make it for the full year. And I think every interim does that. I did one a few years back where it was April, they hired, or in March, they hired the next superintendent. That superintendent had actually taken the year off to care for his sick wife. And so was available to start at any time. And I said, well, I can leave and they can come in. And within, you know, any contract can be modified and agreed by both parties. Within 2 weeks, he was in the office. I spent a week with him and he took over. So interims are designed, and they know that, to come in to help you through the transition, whatever that transition might look like. And they know that it's flexible. Most interims don't come in looking for work for a year. I mean, they'll do it. They're glad to do it, and they've got the skills. We would typically bring you somebody to meet with. It's not a normal interview because these are all people that are, you know, typically very skilled and very capable, and you'd sit down with them. The second option within interims is to use somebody in-house. You may have some people in your system today that are certified and probably could help you through this transition. And then maybe there's somebody else that can cover their spot. And that's done as well. Those are usually the two methods for interims.
Board members, I'll ask, from your perspective, so you would, let's just say facetiously, the board decides we're going to go the interim route.
Okay.
MSBA then makes a recommendation to us, or, I mean, you said essentially there's no interview, or doesn't have to be.
Well,
meet with individuals.
here's the way it's typically done. These are folks that aren't interested in interviewing. They've already done the job forever. They know what they're doing. You know, it's like, you know, a surgeon, you know, they can know what they do. So you walk in, you know, they're going to do the job. That's the same thing true of an interim that we would recommend to you. You would decide, and then we're going to go look if that's the route you choose to go, to try and find somebody that might be available, have the characteristics and qualifications that you need, that kind of thing. The other thing I would recommend is that you look internally as well to see if that's a possibility. So you got two things you can move forward on. Typically, we would try to react within a week. Get you a name. Typically, I'd work with the board chair, and the last number of districts, they've used a negotiating committee to do the contracts. And what they would do is say 3 board members would sit down with the potential interim and visit, talk about, what's in front of you. I would tell you as a board that you should think about, if you go this route, having some very specific things you ask the interim to do. Some people feel like bringing an interim in is like treading water, biding your time. I don't think that's necessarily the case. Interims will, keep doing the business of being a superintendent, but I would also give them 2 or 3 very specific things you'd like them to complete by the time they're done. And that way, you can demonstrate to others that, yes, we're getting something more than what we're not treading water, we're moving forward, so.
So the discussion that needs to be had right now is if we move forward, are we moving forward with interviews with the 2 remaining candidates, or are we suspending the search and then visit with Leah on how we want to move that forward? So that's.
No. I don't think 2 candidates is a big enough talent pool. I don't think we're doing any due diligence for our district by just picking from 2.
I agree with Lynn, especially with the time frame. They only had a couple weeks to apply. We gave more time, we could get more candidates. Not saying the candidates that we have aren't great candidates. It's just like someone said, disservice. It would be a disservice to the district if we just took what we got instead of finding more.
You said that the applicant pool has been pretty small. One way to look at it too is that even with more time, we may not get a lot more candidates. I mean, hopefully, like you said, but I suppose at that point, there would be a little bit more talk. You said that all the superintendents.
It's so hard to say because you only need one.
Right.
And,
Right.
And typically the boards don't want it to be a reflection on those that have applied, and Amanda just mentioned that. But late in the season, we're seeing anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 total candidates being applied. And it's not a reflection of the district, but it's mostly a reflection of the time of year. We've seen a large outflow of superintendents in the last 2 years. We think COVID's had a huge hit on that. We've seen a lot of people that would normally move up, maybe hesitate. There isn't that big of a pay difference, and the amount of pressure and grief is certainly not commensurate with that separation. It's just, we don't know if this is unique. We haven't seen this before. Having said that, your neighbor, Crookston, and I did that search, they had 3 applicants and closed it, suspended it with the plan of starting up this fall and asking their current interim to stay on. This is all done in public, so nothing out of school here. And 3 weeks later, they decided they'd like to reopen it, just what the heck and see. They did, and they ended up with 11 total candidates. But that was also 3 months ago, so it's a little different. So that was an earlier search that still only ended up with 3. Thief River Falls this year had been suspended last year because they got 4 candidates. They interviewed all 4, and after the first round of interview, they suspended. And they ended up with 3 candidates total. They hired 1, and they're very happy with the hire, I believe. So I don't know how to give you any predictor of what could happen.
Mhm.
I can tell you what has happened and what the trends are that we see.
So just, I want to hear, so Thief River Falls suspended,
Yes.
they open it back up in the fall and
No, yes,
or-
they suspended, and we got them an interim.
okay,
And so she's been there the whole year.
so then they open
And
it
we
back up.
Opened up they announced in December, I think, and we began the process in January. Now, the process we did with them, when I went back, we all went through the training already. So, we could condense that early part of that process and had a longer, I think we had a 6 or 7 week advertisement period. You know, I think, what do we have, 3 weeks, whatever it was, so that there's a much longer period of time. And also literally had, what, 6, 8 months of the word getting out.
Sure.
And everybody knew that it was open, so that can work for you and against you, especially if there's a, you know, a candidate that people would really like to have.
But so how many did they come back with the second time?
They had 3 total,
They had 3 total. Is that how they started? 3 total?
3 total candidates the second time.
And they had 4 the first time.
Yes.
But they aren't necessarily,
Well-
they aren't necessarily the same. Like,
No,
you're gonna get a different.
They were
No,
different,
Yeah.
Yeah,
different candidates.
yep, but yes, I understand that, but it's, you're running that risk as well
Yes,
for doing this, and then all of a sudden you get 3. Well, now,
yeah. And, you know, sometimes it can be location, it can be time of year, it can be any number of things. There is a district that is doing its planning meeting tonight, deciding to do the entire, just starting where you were 2 months ago. They're just gonna start it, and they're gonna run into July, hopefully, to get it done. You know, I don't know how they'll do. That's the latest I've ever heard of.
Mhm.
Typically, by the time we get into April, we're suggesting you go directly to an interim and not go through the process. However, going through the process, you could get a great pool. You don't know, because you can always suspend and reopen.
yeah.
I'd rather take the risk and find out.
Well, the timing is, yeah, I feel like timing wise, it's feeling really rushed. at
Yeah,
this
we
point.
knew we were rushed.
Yeah, we did. It just, now it's like, okay, that's 6 weeks away that we would want to have somebody starting.
No, and it doesn't give another district or anything a lot of time either. Like,
If somebody were
yeah,
to
if someone
come.
gets a
That's
job.
part
or
of the
they-
problem.
One of the
No one
candidates,
has any time.
that's
for
one
it.
of, one of the candidates told me,
Mhm,
Yeah.
they did not want to leave their current district.
Sure.
There's not
Professional.
enough time for them.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I admire that because, you know, they're also being loyal.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You know, so, question of timing is hard. It's not like other jobs where you give 2 weeks and you're out the door and so on. The cycle is such that we almost got to be making decisions, I think, in March if we can. That way it allows people to move, and other districts are leaving to find replacements, et cetera. So.
Agreed.
you got anything you?
I'm kind of on the same mindset as Lynn. I respect all the applicants. However, 2 is just it's a thin number, and, I would like to go through that whole due diligence process and have a good interview process. And with 2, it just seems like that's difficult to do.
I would agree.
I guess I'm on the fence. I'm really on the fence, especially after what you've said. I was leaning one direction, but now I'm really there, just because if we suspend, and then are you going to lose the 2 that did apply? And then are you going to, all of a sudden now what if we come back with 1?
That's a good point.
That
That's a
makes,
possibility, yeah.
that probably gives me more anxiety right now than, we have 2 right now, and that want to. And that's tough. It's tough. And I understand hey, maybe these 2 aren't, maybe if we leave it and we're all hopeful that we're going to get that 10 to 15, and then we get to make this great decision, but maybe we don't have that. And if we get 2 that are now disgruntled, that don't apply again, and now only 1 or 2 apply next time, well, now we can't use that excuse again. And that makes me even more nervous, I guess. Now, just thinking of that, like,
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
definitely is a tough spot to be in. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And you make a really valid point, Josh. But I've never seen a board get into this time frame and think of it in terms of, reflection on the candidates.
Mhm.
However, having been a candidate myself in the past, I can see where candidates might take it that way.
Mhm.
So it's a valid
Yeah, you'd
point.
hate to do that.
because yes, we have time, we have lots of time right now, right? So we're talking like lots of time, but if all of a sudden I'm the what if right now, you get in and then all of a sudden there's just 2, we can't use that excuse again, that, hey, we got to suspend. We have to take then. We're stuck. And that's where I'm on the fence now. unfortunately. I don't know where that goes.
I would think that the odds are in your favor to have a much larger pool starting
In
in
January.
January. Yeah.
With, like you said, a longer open
Is
period. of
that the
time.
norm? Is that, I mean?
That's the-
if you were-
Ideally,
The norm would be, start talking about it in December and setting your dates to start meeting in January. If you think about the school calendar, you're going through the budget setting stuff and doing the audit in October. And by the time you get to December, you're already making plans, for example, to go to the school board convention. A lot of superintendents go there. And one of the things that superintendents do, whether you know or not, are talking to each other about who's opening, what boards are like, what the districts are like. I mean, it's like in any business, you kind of, it's the back office talk. And I think that happens there. I've even seen some board members go and talk to other board members who they know that there's a superintendent over there that might be leaving and trying to find out about it. I mean, that kind of thing happens. But January is a good time to start the process and try to wind up in March, mid-March if you can. I think that's,
Could you start before then? Have you started before then?
I did actually, in Deep River's case, we started in November and then we had a real long thing. Our first meeting was in the third week of December. So we set our first planning meeting up was before Thanksgiving, I think. I can't remember, but somewhere in that neighborhood. And then we met right after, either right before Christmas or right after Christmas, before New Year's, and then got into it in January, and by February they were interviewing and their decision was made, I think, in March. I just remember spending a couple nights up there because of the snowstorms that came through.
I almost feel like it's a necessary risk that we should take.
You can't run a
Yeah.
you do not, do you, or don't you suggest, can we run it at the same time? Let's say that, I'm hearing up here, trying to listen to consensus. If we went the interim route, can we still move a process along at the same time, or do you suggest that you had said suspended, but has any other districts ever brought an interim on, but still try to move a process forward,
During the search process,
doing the search?
I've not
process?
seen that happen.
And you wouldn't suggest that, or?
I just had never seen it happen.
Okay.
So are you saying like,
I'm just curious if we can, let's
Hire
say the
an
board
interim.
says we go interim, you could give us some recommendations. We find an interim that's qualified, meets what we're looking for, in a retired individual, what have you, to help run the district, but at the same time, we're still going through the process. So we're really extending our opening. You said Josh has posed the question if we go earlier. Well, let's call this earlier. I don't know if that's
So
beneficial to us.
let
or
me
if
understand. Are you saying then you'd bring them on a year from now in July? You do the process, but then bring them on, or hire them when you hire them?
I've just hire them when, I'm just thinking facetiously outside the box, hire them when we hire them. So let's say that the board ultimately says,
What happens in the interim?
well,
Well, you
that's
said that
the
it's a
discussion.
30-day,
It
thing.
could be it, but if that's the way you set the contract up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's between you and the interim to do that.
You think that would be?
But I would, if you're gonna do that, I'd tell the interim exactly what you're doing up front and what the possibilities
might
are.
not have-
That's
The
gonna
only-
make it infinitely more hard for
Yeah.
us to
Yeah.
get.
The only thing
Yeah.
I worry about is you're gonna maybe miss some candidates there because they're so into the beginning of school.
mhm,
Yeah,
and they might have to move here, find an apartment or something. I don't know.
Our timing is what I really wish this was simpler, but if you get right down to it, the bottom line is the timing. Because we're into our brand new year, July 1, and somebody else starting another district isn't gonna walk away in August. So,
I would agree.
it would have to be somebody that's either unemployed or internal, one of the two.
But either way, if it was someone internal, then you'd have to find someone to fill that position. If
It's a
they-
domino, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
What the other districts that you've been working with as of late, you've mentioned some of that when you have been presenting to us. Have they been successful in finding a candidate or
In interim,
have they gone, no, have they found a full-time candidate or have they gone to the interim? You just described like Crookston and Thief River Falls, but I think
Pipestone.
Pipestone you had mentioned.
Pipestone just made an offer to an interim the end of last week. And they're doing their contract thing right now.
And they started late like we did, didn't they?
They were actually ahead of you.
Oh, they
They were
were.
earlier than you by 2 weeks.
And it was timing for them as well.
Yep. They ended up with 4 candidates. One walked away. They had 3. Their circumstances were almost parallel to yours.
Okay.
Well, more discussion or we need to make a decision so we know how the rest of this meeting turns out and how we move forward. Bottom line is Minnesota state statute says we need a superintendent to run this district. We can't run the district as a board. So we need to figure out how we're gonna do that. We know Mike's gone soon and we gotta have somebody to feel that to work in that office to run. So
You want a motion?
we can go to a motion, get a second. We can have discussion off the motion in the second, and if it dies, it dies. Let's at least try that.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I should have mentioned, Josh, when we were talking, you don't have to have a full-time superintendent. If you want to hire a part-time, you can hire a part-time. There's still work to be done and somebody has to pick up the work, but you wouldn't have to have a full-timer. So
It just says we have to have a superintendent.
you have to have a superintendent.
Yeah.
I think we
Say-
need full-time.
One of
Yeah.
them.
Big enough district that
Too big
need
of
a full-time.
Do you feel from my perspective, do you feel confident, and you might have even mentioned this, that there's viable
In terms,
interims out there still?
There are. The question is, where are they currently living? Are they close enough to you? You know, if they don't live close enough to you, do they want to be here? Because typically they would end up renting an apartment someplace and spending the week and then going home on weekends or, you know, whatever their circumstances might be. The one offer that's made that isn't public yet in Pipestone that lives close by. The other person that they were talking to actually got hired as an interim in Del Rapids, South Dakota, right across the border from Pipestone. They got family in Sioux Falls, even though that superintendent came from Minnesota. I know of a couple names down in southeast Minnesota, but you know, like us, we choose to live here. You know, we know what we're getting into in the winter.
So
Folks might not.
what would happen if, well, I'll just say that you can't find an intern for some reason, whatever, no one wants to come all the way this far north. Now what?
The latest the latest elected school board member becomes a superintendent. No, I'm just kidding. It's just kidding. We would help you try to find somebody, typically somebody internally.
Okay.
You know, because your size district is big enough that I'm sure that you have superintendent certified people on staff. You know, there are people out there, sometimes they takes a little coaxing and get them back into the game. You know, they maybe been out a year or two and, you know, they're kind of loving life and getting in the boat every day and going fishing kind of deal. But we've managed to find them almost every time or to find an alternative internally. So.
well. I think it makes sense what you say I've been down to the cities for the school board association stuff and there's a lot of conversations, a lot of talking and I feel like if we do suspend, we should do it kind of in the traditional manner of doing it in December and then opening it up and having maybe an longer open period, but you know, figuring things out into beginning of next year. That's,
So I have a question. So like if we find let's say we do the interim route and we do someone internally. We could, and they after their contract's up, we could always say we'd liked it or whatever. And could we offer them, do they have to stay an interim or can we offer
Oh.
them as the actual superintendent job.
You can, Lake Park Audubon, hired an interim,
Mhm.
1 year contract. Halfway through the year, things were going so well, they made an offer, a full 3 year contract. And they both agreed to it, and so they
Was that
didn't
an
go through the
internal?
hiring process again.
Yeah, was that an internal candidate or an external?
That was an external
Oh, so it's
candidate.
even possible to have an external one who was retired and then want to come back. in
It
theory.
is possible. I mean, technically you can do that, absolutely.
Okay.
You know, you hire somebody, the interim contract is like 2 pages.
Mhm.
You know, it's very simple. The other contract which you got is part of the planning packet, you know, like 7 pages long or whatever, totally different. So that can be done. It's not a big deal,
Okay.
you know.
Okay. Well, there's no motion on the floor.
I make a motion to vote yes or no to suspending superintendent searches and going with an interim.
So let's, I'm gonna try to help, I'm gonna try to help guide you there
Thank you.
with,
Thank you.
so your motion is essentially to suspend
Yes.
our process.
Mhm.
Nancy, you capture that?
Yeah, suspend search until we can put a date.
I don't think we put, well, you're making the motion, so.
Okay, until next December,
This December.
this December of 2023,
Okay. And restart
and restart searching and
in December of 23.
If we decided to start earlier, say November, we could always go back and amend that motion,
Yeah.
right? At any
Yes,
point
you
in time.
can, at any point in time. I mean, it's like any motion that you make,
Yeah.
you can redo it. It's not a problem. you know.
I was thinking that too, Eric, like November, cause then you get out there first.
June.
So we
Would
have,
you rather?
the motion's on the floor.
You
but
could just say next fall and that way.
Okay, next fall.
Next fall.
You don't
Make a
pin
motion
yourself
for
down
fall.
to a date, yeah.
So do we need to add interim on there, or should that be a next?
No, that'd be separate, that would be
So we'll see how
separate,
this one
Okay.
lands first. and-
yeah.
Nancy, can you reread the motion if you would, please?
I just have, Holwiger move to suspend superintendent search until fall.
I think that's-
A second.
All right, now we can have discussion on that if there is any. All right, I know it's not a resolution, but these are big ticket decisions, so Nancy would call roll.
Eastwood,
Yes.
Holwiger,
Yes.
Turtles,
Yeah.
Brock,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Beasley,
Yes,
Okay, so search process is suspended till fall. Now we have another thing on our hands, so we need to.
So now you talk about the interim, how you want to handle the interim, and that can go one of 2 different ways, I'm thinking here. One is that you ask us for potential names. And the second is that you look internally at the same time. And we would try to get you a name within inside of a week. And we'd probably want to then talk about, either way, how would you go about putting a contract together with that? And I think if I remember right, when we were talking about how you would go about putting together a contract for a new superintendent, you were going to use your negotiating committee. Is that correct? That's probably what I'd recommend that you do then, for this next process, whomever that interim might be. You know, that certainly is the way to go about doing it. So
I'm gonna pause you there for a second, Mike, because I'll get this question, but if we decide to do that coincidentally with when you're making a recommendation and then look at internal, if there's licensed staff.
whichever way you want to go is fine. I mean, we would try to get you somebody, a name within a week, and then you probably want to try to get together with them within a week. That gives you at least a couple of weeks.
Is that
Oh,
us
Internal.
that has to find somebody internally then? Or who do you want to find internal?
No, we wouldn't look internally,
That'd be on
So
us.
that's- That's my question.
because we don't know
Right.
internal.
So you're telling, you can make recommendations to us on qualified candidates that are out there.
Correct.
We may have qualified or unqualified candidates, but how do we deem that? I mean, do we go through an interview process if we pick, hey, there's 3 folks
Yeah.
in the district, or is it just merely a conversation?
I would keep it as a conversation because it's an additional contract. For example, in the interim contract, it says that it recommends that you continue to pay them their current salary, benefits, et cetera, and then pay them additionally for the additional responsibility. And the contract also says that when they're done, then they would go back to their other job. So that way you don't get caught up in some kind of a contract loop or have other problems. So it's an additional piece. So you can do whatever process you choose as far as hiring somebody. You might have multiple internals, I don't know. We would bring you somebody that we, from the outside, that we know can do the job because they've already done it and they've done it successfully. And, you know, then I would recommend a casual process to sit down with them. We will have vetted them, done all that background work, and you sit down, and find out, are they going to fit? You know, is their personality going to work with who we are? Do they understand our culture in terms of ag and in terms of community and you know, that kind of thing? And, you know, is it going to work that way? Whatever process that you want to use is fine. We would not be involved in that process. We would just get you the names. Then once you make a decision, then you still got to figure out the details of the contract and it has to come back to the full board to be approved anyway. So either way, the process could be the same. You could make it as complex as you like. You know, it's really up to you. The questions that we're building for the normal search process were designed the first round, particularly to sort through candidates and show you kind of who they are. Do they have the skill sets to match what it is you're after, et cetera, so that you get a view of a series of candidates. We like these people because they seem to fit us. So then we take them to the second round. And the second round, then we dig deep. We go, deeply into their skill sets and the specific things you're after. So let's say referendum is something on your, I don't know if it is. So referendum, for example, is something that you are going to have to do at some point in time. And therefore you want to find out if somebody has the experience and the ability to do that. So we would design the second round question specifically to get after that. When you do an internal candidate, you already know more about them than you'd ever find out from an external candidate through a normal search process anyway. I mean, they're total known commodity. The good news is you know them. The bad news is you know them. You know, I mean, that's true for all of us that were internal. So, you know, some boards just, choose to go with who they know. Others are happier to bring in somebody from the outside so they don't upset the apple cart.
But you
Comments?
said we could,
Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
you said we could do both, right? So you could look for names that
Yes.
fit, and then we could still do the internal
Absolutely.
part
Absolutely.
if just to see. Okay.
Yeah, and it might be that, let's say that we did this dual track.
Mhm.
And you get to the point where you go, we want to make an offer internally. Not a problem. We just redirect ours. There are not a lot of people externally that want to do interim work. So if they want to work, they're going to find work anywhere they want to go. I'm not a young guy. I still get offers to do interim work all the time. And it's that there just aren't enough people to do that job. So it's not a problem.
I would recommend when we look internally and you look external, that we focus that effort so that we're not all running to Nancy or Mike or whoever and being like, hey, who can,
Yeah.
How does that happen then? Do
Um,
we have board meetings for it? or-
Oh, walk me through that.
I think
That's,
if you're gonna,
that's personnel.
if you're gonna do, I would do a personnel issue. I'd run it through whether I don't know what committees you have. If you have a personnel committee or the negotiations committee, however you want to do that. You could use somebody internal for, reference work or whatever, but the odds are really good. You're going to know the people that probably qualify, I'm guessing. So I would try to keep it to 3 people or something if you can. If you get more than that, then now you got open meeting law kind of issues that you got to wrestle with anyway. And you might as well do it with the whole board. Now it becomes really awkward and that kind of thing. And what happens if you sit down with an internal candidate and you decide to go with an external, then what message do you send? So, it's a little awkward, but I think easily we could do dual at the same time, internal, external. And because I will get you the name, by the time I get you your name, you're gonna kind of know whether or not you're gonna do something internal or not, I'm guessing. I don't know.
We also spoke about the domino effect too. If you go internal, are we also late in the year to be trying to find somebody to take an internal position? To
Well,
replace that?
And
person?
that's kind of a, then that, Lindsay, that's a really good point too, because that becomes then an internal question to Mike, probably.
Mhm.
You know, if this happens,
Then
what does that, then what? Yeah.
Yeah. Just a,
He probably needs to be an advisor to you as that process goes
Sure.
forward.
But an internal, if you were successful in finding an internal, you had mentioned earlier that it doesn't have to be a full time, so we could think something outside the box.
Yeah.
Depends on what those, if there are folks that are
hard to know.
qualified internally and what their positions.
If somebody was retiring, that's an easy question because they typically will say, you know, I'll try to help you one day a week or whatever it might be. But there's X amount of work to be done. You fill it with one FTE. Now, this amount of work isn't going to go away. So whether you put a 0.5 FTE, there's still one FTE's worth of work in there. You know, so there's going to be a domino effect. There's going to be an impact to the system. I don't know how you could do it without.
So, I mean, you guys are hired to help guide us. Do you suggest that we have, put a motion on the floor on how we want to move forward with?
I think you should, you know, to direct how you wanted, that you want to hire an interim. You suspended the search and you plan to restart it next fall. Now the direction is now what?
Okay.
We want to hire an interim. We'll ask MSBA for any external possibilities and we'll look internally. Then the third piece would come when you finally have somebody that you want to offer an interim contract to. And we typically don't get involved in the contract stuff. I do have a sample interim contract that I can give you, share with you. Gary Lee, however, from MSBA, he would be the person you'd talk to specifically. He does the contract kind of stuff.
Well, we already know we're late in the game, so whatever direction we go, or we find internally, or a recommendation from MSBA, we have to do it sooner than later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think
that's the bottom line. So
Yeah.
let's get a motion on the floor and then we can talk about it if need be.
I'll move to find an external interim through MSBA while doing a concurrent search internally.
a second.
Okay, I'm gonna, discussion or questions. I guess my only thing is that I got is we better figure out how we're gonna do it internally. So
Yeah.
I'd like to see that added to the motion. So whether that's the negotiations team, I mean, everything ultimately comes back to the board anyway. So let's say that this was done now and negotiation team goes, looks internal,
Yeah.
finds a
Yeah.
candidate internal. Then that negotiation team gets hold of me, we call a special meeting and that gets brought to the board.
So I'll amend the search, or I'll amend the motion to have the negotiations team lead the search internally.
A re-second?
Well, we're at discussion. I mean, you're just amending it, but yeah, you do have to second it. Once again, you agree with it.
I agree with that.
Okay, so
I second.
now we get to discuss that. Does everybody agree that it should be the negotiations team?
I think that's the appropriate.
Yeah.
I think so too. I
Spot.
have one question though on that.
Yep.
So, like, let's say that the negotiation team finds 10 internal candidates. I don't even know. Okay? Are they just gonna decide on those 10? Or are they gonna say, like, send out like a non-reply email or whatever and say, here are the 10 people, just like a heads up email so that the rest of us know who the options are without being involved, I guess, or like, or something. I don't.
I would hope that the negotiations teams just brings us one or two, you know, two candidates or whoever and says, this is what we came up with. We narrowed the search down for you guys. Now as a board, we make that decision. That's how I see it.
If there are any. I mean,
Yeah,
we're merely speculating. So
Yeah,
First thing
that's
we're
what I
gonna
would-
have to
yeah.
do is look at the licenses,
Mhm.
so. Okay. Nancy,
yeah.
you got it with the amended motion?
Yep.
Will you read it back, please?
Brought move to use SBA to search for an interim while simultaneously the negotiations can switch in internally for an interim.
All right, let's,
Move the motion.
what's that?
Yes.
Second in the motion.
Okay, since that's the second item of business, let's, we did a roll call. Let's do a roll call for this one as well, please.
Basically.
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Privilege,
Yep.
Rob,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Musselwhite.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Anything else left? I mean, we gotta get rolling here. So do we need to figure out, when we want to visit. I mean, either Lynn or myself will be visiting with Yuli.
I think so. I think we probably need to talk, pretty regularly, because I'll actually get on the phone when I'm driving home tonight and see what I can get started. And then tomorrow morning I'll follow up again. I hope by the end of the week I can get you a name, if not, by the first part of next week. Maybe more. Typically, we'd like to at least get a couple of names if we can. Let me see what I can do. I don't want to make any promises because I don't have anything in the back pocket, so I'll just have to do the best I can and get back to you.
We're not board members. We're not gonna have, there's no comment on this meeting, and we're not gonna ask for board member comments, but I would, however, pose the question to Yuli is, we've been talking tonight. We were supposed to talk about look at candidates, find finalists. Actually, we've been pushing decisions. I shouldn't say pushing decisions, but looking at information. How are we gonna involve these folks in the interview process? So that'll all basically start over.
We would move it all to the next fall. Now, we've got the framework already decided. So we're gonna pull that framework back out. I've got everything. We'll just pull it all back out. We'll revisit it. Is this what we want to do? How do we make it happen? It'll be so much easier the second time around. You think back to when we started a couple of months ago, this is all brand new, and we were making all these decisions. Now we've got a solid idea of how it works. It'll be pretty easy the second time around.
We voted on that, right?
Yes.
Okay, there's nothing else to take action on tonight, so I do need to at least call this out. The next scheduled board meeting is for Monday, May 22nd. Again, that's our second meeting. And actually, we did label this one as a regular school board meeting, so it actually will be our third one. We only put one item on the agenda tonight, so I'll visit with Mike. I don't know if there is anything on the agenda where we need to have a meeting on Monday or not.
Is that a regular board?
So more to come. I'll find out as soon as possible. Wait a second, is that just coming Monday?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you got,
So
3
I have
days.
till, we have till Thursday to post it, and typically
Well-
I'll do is work through the week with Mike to see if there is anything that needs to be brought for that second meeting.
Let's see if I
I'm
can.
guessing the last facility stuff is done. I don't know if there's any personnel issues that
Unless we put something more towards the end of next week to at least
Because if he
some
brings
sort of
your name,
update, we might,
Yeah.
if we need to come to a
Right.
decision, do we just
yeah, we should maybe,
push that back and then we can?
we should maybe do that. So we have, let's not push that farther.
We
Yeah.
had that, we had the afternoon of the 23rd. I don't know if that's too.
I was thinking like next Thursday. What
Okay.
would that be? I don't know.
I'm out.
25th?
afternoon on the 23rd
I
is
won't be here.
that Tuesday that we had planned for the second round interview. Afternoon on Thursday is
Was
what
it
we,
Thursday?
or
No,
so Tuesday, the 23rd,
Yeah, I think that might be too
So
soon.
that day.
too soon.
well, should we say Thursday the 25th? I'll coordinate with the individual.
I will not be available.
I don't know if I can do that one.
I will not be available Thursday or Friday.
Well, should we just put it Wednesday?
Yep.
Wednesday at 5, and then if
Yep.
I don't.
we need to push it to the following Monday, I mean,
That's
I think one of those
24th.
2 dates we
Okay.
for sure probably want to meet.
Well, what we're gonna do is we're talking amongst
I
ourselves
can't
up
do
here
the 24th
deciding.
at 5. I've
We're
got-
supposed to have a regular or a scheduled meeting on the 22nd. What we've been trying to do in the past, we typically have one scheduled meeting each month. We changed it this year. We still have the 2 scheduled meetings. We don't use the second meeting if we don't have to, if there's not a lot of board business. So we have one. No,
That's what
so
I'm thinking of,
Yeah.
No,
pushing it back to the 24th or,
perfect.
Well, I think you're gonna find someone by tomorrow, Lee. I'm expecting this.
well,
Let's figure out a time.
at
to-
least, yeah, that gives me, I mean, that's well over a week to
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
work
To announce a special-
negotiation committee work, and then Lynn or myself to be working, with Lee. I don't know if that's the day we take action. We'll just have to see what.
Oh, right.
What transpires. If it is, so be it. If
Mhm.
not, it'll just merely be an update.
Yep.
And then if there's anything else, we can add to that too. So, but again, I haven't talked to Mike to see what items are on for the 22nd. Right now, if he tells me that, we do need to have the meeting on the 22nd, I think I'll just suggest that we're gonna push it to the 24th anyway. And I know that's an inconvenience
I don't
for
know.
some,
Yeah, I'll
some
have to-
folks, well, the public will. They're welcome to come to the meeting. It is live as well. But I don't want to meet Monday and then meet Wednesday. I'm just.
I-
I don't know if I
transparent.
can meet Wednesday. I have patience,
Not sure.
the 24th, I have patience. on the 6th.
Well, and we can always, no different than we've done before. We can adjust that schedule.
Yeah.
It's summertime. We can do it
Mhm.
early in the morning. Whatever. So I'll coordinate with individual board members and just
Sure.
reach out. I'll reach out to Mike first and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
So
So all that to say, we don't know when the next meeting is.
all that to say is it's scheduled for Monday. But
It's scheduled for Monday.
I have an idea of what direction to go. So
So I would make a
Somebody-
motion to adjourn.
thank you.
I'll second.
Anybody want to talk about it? All those in favor of adjourning signify by stating aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion, meeting's adjourned. Thanks for coming, everybody.